Thank you all for joining us today. Super exciting to have you to share some of your knowledge in DAOs and in the Arbitrum DAO especially. And yeah, well, for some context, I just want to highlight that the Arbitrum DAO started this year in March 2023. And you know that Option Labs, the first builders of Arbitrum, gave the Arbitrum technology to the community, to the Arbitrum DAO, for a more decentralized Arbitrum. And in March this year, is when the Arbitrum DAO and the Arbitrum Foundation was born to work and to have a better present and a better future for Arbitrum. And you are part of that. You are super active in the Arbitrum DAO, and I've seen you in other DAOs as well. So we'd like to know about the story about how you get involved with DAOs, like since the beginning. Maybe we can start with you, Christoph.
Okay, so basically, like I joined L2Beat solely to handle governance stuff. So my history with the DAO started even before the DAO. So I've been active in the open source and free software communities like 20 years ago, and since then I've been quite active in the free software and open culture movements. And I've been also active in crypto in regulatory space in Poland, working in different working groups alongside government and stuff like that. So when L2Bit realized that they suddenly became important players in governance in different L2s, and L2 government systems, they basically reached out to me if I didn't want to join them. Like I knew L2Bit from funders from the old days, so they asked me to join to handle governance issues. So that's basically how I started doing what I'm doing right now. But I've been involved with DAOs for some time. Actually, the DAO is the original DAO was the thing that brought me to crypto. Like I've been dismissing Bitcoin and everything that happened before that, but like when I heard about the DAO for the first time, like that's when it clicked for me, and I realized, hey, this is something really more interesting and something huge. So since then, I've been involved partially or more actively in many different DAOs, but like in L2Bit is for the first time when I'm doing this like professionally full time.
Nice story. Thank you, Christoph. I imagine that maybe most of us will have like very different ways to enjoy joining DAOs. But yeah, let's start with Katin. I want to hear from you. How do you start?
Okay, I'll try not to go in many tangents, but basically the way I got like first involved in DAOs was with Lex DAO. While I was still like in law school, I was kind of new to crypto as well, and I obviously just went to like the one niche I kind of understood apart from crypto that was kind of legal. And honestly, that's what kind of kicked off my whole career in crypto. I met amazing people there and learned a bit about governance. Obviously, back then I think like Lex DAO was using DAO House, so it was completely different governance model that we use right now. It was more like a Moloch DAO. Anyways, that was my first experience with DAOs. Super interesting, still there. And then more to the point of how I got to here is I met in Ethereum Lima, I met Axel and Romina from SEEDLatam, but back then it was so it was like my first conference in Latin America, and I met them and I started getting more involved. I started contributing to this community called L2 in Spanish, where we started doing education on L2s for Spanish speakers. I met very briefly Chris, thanks to that. But yeah, basically, thanks to them, I started getting more involved in the Latin American communities. I started attending our governance calls, and we had Hoxes that was doing governance for optimism. So that's when I started learning more about how to engage in the governance of like actual larger DAOs. And I was a very like a power user of Arbitrum back then. So I started talking with Hoxes, and we kind of assumed there was going to be a DAO at some point. So we got very excited about it, and we started planning about and seeing how we could do this. But obviously we never knew when it was going to happen. And that was like a year before the DAO even started off. So it was just like an idea we always had behind us. And then like once they announced the DAO, damn, okay, we're going for it, and we just like set up our team and went for the delegation. But yeah, basically that has been my experience with DAOs and how I sort of end up here, kind of like in a very short way. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey.
Yeah, nice story. I guess it started with just curiosity and you asking people to help out in your journey. So, and yeah, and building your journey as well. So cool to see that. And maybe Joseph, can you share about your story too?
Yeah, so like Kat and I will try not to go on many tangents because us lawyers tend to go a bit all over the place sometimes. Out of law school, I think even during law school, I was working at a crypto-focused consultancy firm. So my only exposure was basically crypto, or rather crypto-based clients, centralized providers, decentralized providers, whatever they may be. I was focusing there on crypto-focused advisory, specifically on-chain products, decentralized finance products building on chain, so your traditional DeFi primitives. And there also I started getting a passion for governance framework structuring, and that is where I was exposed to do IDX, which was my initial contribution, sort of from a DAO perspective. And I'm still am, but I got sort of this passion for progressive decentralization and marrying the legal structure with the tech stack and seeing how we can progressively decentralize and utilize one tool to aid the other and vice versa. So that is why I started contributing to DoIDX, actually, because they had pioneered the trust structure in Guernsey and sort of having the on-chain mechanics of governance being legally enforceable through a trust deed. And I started contributing to DoIDX. And I think some 7 months, or rather a bit more, maybe 8 months later, I was elected as a member of the DoIDX Operations Trust as the enforcer of that particular trust. And my contribution in DoIDX was mainly from the legal side of things in relation to their trust structure. I think this is also a lesson that people should take. Sort of lawyers and DAOs or DAO contributions are not that common, but actually you'd be surprised as to the skill sets, even peculiar skill sets that are needed in DAOs at this point in time. It's not just software engineers or other people that know how to code or other delegates. There's a diverse skill set that is needed, I think, in many DAOs and prominent DAOs today. So that was my initial DAO contribution. And, I ended up in Arbitrum, I think, because I actually contacted Blue from Trader Joe a couple of months back to help them, in their governance endeavors. And I was sort of chosen to be part of the Trader Joe Governance Council. And my initial contribution to Arbitrum was actually having to read all the proposals in the STIP, which necessitated a lot of caffeine, but we got it done. And then I ended up staying here, I think. And it's been an amazing journey. I now contribute to various efforts, and I think it's one of the most welcoming ecosystems that I've had the pleasure of participating in. And yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Nice, that's a nice story. Yeah, the road leads you to the Arbitrum DAO. So cool to see. And Friesen, we want to hear your story too.
Yeah, joining the Arbitrum DAO by reading and voting on every step is like trial by fire, So I actually have a background before I was in the crypto space building B2B software products and businesses. And when I first started, I'm pretty new to space, like kind of class of 2020, 2021. And I started learning about crypto and doing on-chain stuff. And I kind of once I learned about DAOs and started participating in them, I felt that there would be an opportunity to kind of build similar type products. DAOs are obviously very different than businesses in many important ways. But the need for software to make operations more smooth and to help people coordinate, to get stuff done. I felt like there's a lot of opportunity there, particularly given that, especially, a few years ago, right? Like the state of the tooling was pretty rough, right? Particularly for non-technical users. So that's kind of how I got interested in DAOs and what led me to Tally. And then from there, it's just been, an amazing journey. A couple things I've done. I helped found a service DAO called Content Guild. Provides kind of content marketing services to crypto firms, but it's operated as a DAO where the editors of the kind of service DAO also control the treasury. and also helped found an event in New York called DAO NYC, where we brought 500 people together to, for a full day event focused on DAOs in 2021. And then, have just been working at Tally and helping with on-chain governance all along the way.
Cool, nice, very great story. And I would like to know as well, like, why are you still involved in the Arbitrum DAO? And what's your advice for those people who want to start participating in the Arbitrum DAO? What would you say is the best path to follow as a beginner? We can start with you, Joseph.
Yeah, sure. So I think I stuck around because there's actually a lot to do. And I think this is a couple of, I think last week or the week before, I actually posted a tweet that there is no gatekeeping from the Arbitrum Foundation whatsoever. So you're able to actually get stuff done. So I think if you want to contribute and you want to focus your efforts on somewhere where, or rather in an ecosystem where you want to contribute freely, you want to collaborate with other people, with delegates, etc. I haven't encountered a better ecosystem than Arbitrum. So I think I stuck around because there's a lot to contribute towards. You meet a lot of intelligent people and you learn from a lot of intelligent people. And that's why I stuck. And I think if you want to get started, just see what skill set you have, see what proposals may necessitate your skill set, reach out via Telegram and the various group chats that we have, which by various, I mean hundreds at this point, it seems like. But I think if you want to contribute, this is the place to be, for sure, for various skill sets. You do not need to be legal, you do not need to be a software dev. There are various endeavors that require, I think, even the peculiarity of skill sets.
Great, thank you, Joseph. And what about you, Frison? Why are you still in the Arbitrum DAO, and what do you think is the best path to follow for someone new who wants to start participating?
I'm really passionate about the Arbitrum kind of product and ecosystem. I've been, ever since I joined crypto, like I've really been largely focused on the Ethereum ecosystem and really believe in the layer 2 roadmap. And from my perspective, from basically a product perspective, right, Arbitrum has made the most progress on realizing that vision in terms of just, having a scalable blockchain experience that, does actually inherit a meaningful amount of the security of the Ethereum L1. And so I just as a Ethereum ecosystem participant, right, I'm passionate about stewarding Arbitrum. And the DAO itself has kind of an also unprecedented amount of power. You kind of see, if you look across the ecosystem at, the major protocols, there's kind of a spectrum of, maybe the DAO is still fairly centralized where, there's one party or only a couple of parties that can create proposals or execute proposals, all the way up to where I would describe Arbitrum, where the token holders and the delegates that people have delegated their tokens to really have a tremendous amount of administrative level authority over smart contracts, including the actual roll-ups themselves, the constitution of the DAO, including governance of the foundation, the treasury itself. And so this fundamentally creates a scenario where you have sort of a large successful product that the DAO truly controls and has power over, that creates an environment, that is really strong for contribution. What I would say as far as getting involved in the Arbitrum DAO is it's still the very, very early days. It might seem late because there's all these people doing all this stuff. There's already this dip, but it's actually not true. The DAO still has a lot of work to do to formalize some of these key initiatives in terms of how the DAO can actually contribute to grow the ecosystem. And so I think, like Joseph suggested, the forum is a good place to start because there's actually a lot of activity on there. And what you'll see is there are people who are working on initiatives that are promising, but they need support. So maybe this is a good place to start. I think just as Joseph suggested, trying to find folks who are working on something on the forums who maybe need support and figure out if you can plug in to help them. Maybe one more thought is another unique part of the Arbitrum DAO is the ecosystem projects in Arbitrum have a lot of governance power. So projects like Treasure DAO or GMX or Camelot, I don't want anyone to be sad that I missed them. I love all the ecosystem projects, but they need to do a lot of governance as well. So there's an opportunity for like meta governance or governance, helping the ecosystem projects with governance in the Arbitrum DAO, which is kind of a unique surface area as well.
Great insights there and advices for the community. And what about you, Christoph? What would you say?
So first of all, like, I'm a bit surprised you're asking why are we still here. Like, for me, we just started yesterday, like, and we haven't even launched fully yet. So we are just getting started, and it's evolving quickly. Like, I just realized that it's like half a year already, but really, there's a lot of things happening, and for anybody that would like to get involved, the first mission for them is to find something that they could actually provide to the community. Something that is not that obvious in DAOs is that there is no one that will assign you to do some job. You need to find yourself something to do. Just do it, and continue tomorrow doing the same. In my opinion, this consequence is the key, because just showing up for a week will not get you there. You need to be for a long game. And in my opinion, like, I would say that I totally agree with Friesen about the possibilities in the DAO, but I would say that starting with the forum might be challenging. Like, forum is quite a chaotic place, and if I were to suggest something, I would suggest joining one of the calls that that give you at least some, like, easier way to comprehend what's happening. And there are several calls you can choose from. We've got the calendar with all calls that we know of, like Arbitrum DAO governance calendar. You can find it on the forum, or you can simply reach out to me, and I will happily send the link. And there are many different calls that you can join. Starting with, and here's kind of like myself showing. Starting with L2Bit Arbitrum office hours, where we discuss different Arbitrum related topics every week. Then there is this monthly governance call that is happening next week, coming Wednesday, 5 p.m. UTC, and you will, like, for any newcomers, I believe that that's probably the best place to start, because you will get an overview of what's happening, of the most important things happening in the DAO in just 90 minutes. So probably that's the best way to start. But there are also other calls, like the calls organized by Plurality Labs, calls organized by different working groups. And once you get a taste of what's happening, then there will be definitely plenty of things that you can contribute to the DAO. And let me cut here. And, like, if you need any help, reach out to me. I would be more than happy to guide you in specific directions where you can find, like-minded people.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, I totally agree that people need to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I can do this," or "I suggest to do something," and to get started with that and make it happen. So yeah, cool. Thank you. And I see that they're here in the chat. You can find the links to the governance calendar calls, and and yeah, Clifton is sharing it, so you can check it out there to join the calls, and as well the link to the forum. And Katin, let us know what's your point of view here and your advices for the community.
Yeah, so really, like, the first question on, like, why I'm still here, I think I agree with everybody that there's still a lot to be done. But personally, well, I generally believe that Arbitrum is the way to expand Arbitrum's adoption in our region. So that's, like, one, like, the reason I'm passionate about it, but also more on a personal level. I'm also a big governance nerd. I really enjoy learning about governance, and I think, like, the level of decentralization we have in Arbitrum is insane, to the point that we can really experiment with a lot of stuff. We kind of make it a bit tedious at first, but I think we're getting there. But anyways, now more towards how I think we could, like, like recommendations for new users or like for new delegates. I do think it's like I agree as well with Chris that I think the forum is very maybe overwhelming. Even I think for delegates nowadays, it's a bit difficult to catch up, to stay up to date with everything that's been discussed, proposals, governance, etc. So I do think the monthly calls or like some weekly calls that go on are definitely a good place to get started. I would say read the documentation as well, or at least like the Arbitrum Constitution, because I think it's always important to understand a DAO's bureaucracy. Like, okay, I know bureaucracy is an ugly word, but it is bureaucracy in the end. You have to understand how the whole like governance cycle works to see how to engage in a way. I think that's very helpful. But definitely attend like the calls. They're good summaries of what's going on. And then just find your niche, find one stuff that you're very interested in, and just like see how you can contribute there. There's a bit of everything. Either way, like if you're interested in just like governance structures or more into DeFi, you'll always find your own group. And I also think like if you want to get started as a delegate, you don't have to go solo. Like if you have friends or whatever, you can even just like start your own delegation and just like start engaging with it. Because I would like obviously this like from personal experience, I would like to see also more like regional delegations. I think that would be pretty cool because obviously it's important to decentralize the protocol, but also like the social layer. I think it would be nice. And you don't need anything to do this. Like you can just like from your own, like if you have 5 friends in your own town or city or whatever, you can form your own delegation. Of course, you will need voting power later on, but you don't need that to engage in governance or at least like in the discussions. So I think that would be that from me. Obviously, like my experience has been a bit different from other delegates, maybe because we had like a team since day one. And I also knew some delegates, for example, Chris and Friesen. So I could always bother them when I had a doubt at first, and I'm pretty sure it did at some point. But yeah, I think it's just like also just asking, you know. I think and it's like generally in crypto, like don't feel shy of just asking people if you feel lost. Like, okay, worst case scenario, they won't reply. Maybe they're busy doing something else, but it's quite likely you'll get a reply at some point. So yeah, I think that's from me. Like all the insights from me.
Cool, thank you, Katin. Yeah, that was great. I was writing down all your suggestions, and I'd say to summarize, like the first one is to get ready with the Arbitrum Basic, then read the Constitution, then create yourself an account at the forum, read the proposal, start sharing your thoughts, etc., and participate at the Arbitrum DAO calls. You can find all the links here in the chat. And yeah, as you mentioned, like just raise your hand and say what you would like to do, how you can improve the Arbitrum DAO and the Arbitrum ecosystem, and reach out to any of us if you need help. And as well, Clifton is here, so yeah, you can reach out to him as well. But yeah, cool. And well, I think right now the Arbitrum DAO is very active. Like many people have joined to share their ideas and start something new and also making it happen. So I would like to ask you, what do you think about this? And also what do you think about the letter A in the DAO, like in the Arbitrum DAO? Do you think the autonomous part, is it achieved in the Arbitrum DAO? Maybe we can hear your thoughts, Katin, here.
Oh, that's a very interesting, like the autonomous part. Like I've even seen a lot of things on what even autonomous means in the context of DAOs. I think it is quite autonomous in the sense that it's we go down the censorship resistance kind of like part of how, at least that's how I see autonomous, having a DAO that can still work like because of all the on-chain components it has. And I think like in that sense, it is pretty autonomous. Most of the governance, we run it on-chain, basically, like all the governance is on-chain. We only have snapshot for temperature checks. So in that sense, I do think it's pretty autonomous, or way more autonomous than most or any other DAO of the size that we've been dealing with, because most don't really handle their governance as on-chain as we do, or like delegates don't have as much power as delegates in Arbitrum have, which is pretty cool. Like it's a very nice feature we have, which has made like the whole governance process very interesting. I think, but it's also, I also find it a bit interesting because it's kind of, I feel like the conception of the DAO was a bit contrary to like the whole process of progressive decentralization that Arbitrum has followed, because I think like the DAO started very decentralized, like instead of progressively decentralizing, which I think it's the right take. I think it's, I'm not saying this is in a wrong way. I think this is how it should be for DAOs. So I think we're still we're at a point that we're still building more infrastructure for like the governance and how to, for example, how to interact with service providers. And we've like recently voting right now for that, and for example, also for the steep. So I think like this high level of decentralization has allowed us to experiment a lot, but it's also being a bit maybe chaotic at first. But yeah, I think we're getting there in that sense.
Thank you, getting nice thoughts. And maybe Chris, do you want to share something about it?
Yeah, like in my opinion, the autonomous part in the DAO definition is kind of like misunderstood and confused. It's confusing because like DAO solve the coordination problem. Of course, we can have autonomous smart contracts that do not require this social layer, but like from my experience, it's not what DAOs are good for. So, in my opinion, the autonomous part is something that we are trying to achieve through figuring out the distributed organization model, where we and that's the great experiment from the in Arbitrum DAO, by the way, because like differently than in other ecosystems, Arbitrum DAO basically Arbitrum distributed tokens and you know, let everybody figure out how to deal from now, like how to self-organize, how to create structures, how to create procedures, how to create processes, so that we can actually effectively govern this whole mechanism. Because as Prison mentioned before, the special thing about Arbitrum is that actually everything is in the hands of the DAO, not just treasury, which is fully in the hands of the DAO, but also the whole protocol, the revenues from the protocol, the protocol parameters, protocol upgrade decisions. This is all like we all need to decide on that. It's not that we simply can accept something. We like in the long term, we are managing this, not just the organization, the whole protocol. So the autonomous part, how I like, if I were to interpret it, I would say that this is something that we are trying to figure out in terms of establishing processes, governance processes, and governance structures to make this organization work independently, like in a distributed manner, independently of several in the future physical, like in real life entities supporting it, but it's those entities are supporting the DAO, not the other way around.
Great, thank you, Chris. Those are great thoughts. And I would like to ask you, Joseph and Friesen, like, what about the D and O in DAO? That means decentralized organization. Do you think we are working towards that, or what do you think the community can do to achieve that mission? Maybe Friesen? Oh, yeah, Joseph? Yeah.
Yeah, Friesen can go first. I'm up for anything. Okay, go ahead.
I'll go quick so everyone can get the alpha from Joseph. I think that the DAO is very strong on the decentralization part. I think we're still building the organization part. And we're seeing this like in the discussion about onboarding to the DAO. There's just now starting to be many resources put in place, like the governance calls and the forum and the grants programs and others. But I think we're still in the forming stage of like kind of an operating framework for the DAO. Like what does the DAO do? Why do we do it? How, over what period? Like how much? Like kind of thing. I actually want to shout out the work that Plurality Labs and I think Themes is here, and Disruption Joe and team Sean have done on this, because they kind of did like I think they called this like a sense making process, where they use a lot of apps and contributions from the community to try to understand what people care about in the DAO. So that work is something worth taking a look at. But yeah, I think the DAO is quite decentralized, but I think we're still figuring out like what organization means. I think for the DAO is my honest answer there.
Nice, thank you, Friso.
Yeah.
What about you, Joseph?
Yeah, I think very good points raised by everyone. I think in my personal opinion, I think actually, and I'll give a shout out to Gary Gensler here, he actually indirectly provided a lot of positive things to the industry for one main reason. Sort of his crackdown on crypto resulted in projects wanting to progressively decentralize, sometimes very quickly and unsuccessfully, but that led to what to do and what not to do when you want to progressively decentralize. And I think one of the sort of prongs of the Howey test was sort of one of the things that the lawyers were arguing that you can do to sort of evade one of the prongs of the Howey test was if you're sufficiently decentralized, right? And I think there was a paper actually by a SEC employee who then went up to create his own law firm, circulated in the industry. He created this Bahamas test, and this is with regards to the decentralization prong. And the Bahamas test was basically if the founders of the project escape to the Bahamas and leave everything behind, does the project continue to live on? And I think we've gotten to the point in Arbitrum where if the founders go to the Bahamas and drink mojitos for the rest of their life, this project can actually continue to develop, continue to progress. So I think we're sufficiently decentralized in that particular sense. From an autonomy perspective, I think there are various ways you can interpret it. But the fact that I myself, a new contributor to the ecosystem, can go on Telegram, speak with Alex, speak with Christoph, realize that there's a particular thing that needs optimizing within the ecosystem, work on a procurement framework, submit that on the forums, go to Snapshot, ratify that procurement framework without being gate-kept whatsoever from a foundation, from a limited liability company, whatever it may be. I think that is a sort of evidence of the fact that we've gotten to a good level of autonomy. I don't think we're fully autonomous, but I think we have a very, very good level of autonomy within the ecosystem at this point in time. And I think the various initiatives are a testament to that fact. Go ahead, Christoph.
One thing that I would like to add is that shout out should not only go to Gary Gensler, because European legislation also mentions this full decentralization. For example, MICA also includes this full decentralization in the legislation, which is not actually defined. Which I believe that soon in the future we will have lawyers actually interpreting that, and we will have people implementing it, and it will be super fun, because suddenly this concept of decentralization is going away from nerds like us, and actually like regular people need to, like regular lawyers that are not like crypto savvy, they need to figure out whether something is fully decentralized or not yet. That will be like, I can't wait for it. I will share the interesting article about that in the chat as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. As one that's tried to sort of chisel away at that particular thing for a while now. The article you mentioned was actually the firm I started working at, Christoph, which is very interesting. That was the firm I actually learned about crypto from. So basically that is Recital 22, fully decentralized without any intermediary in place. So that's also something very interesting in relation to the EU aspect. To go back to the question, I think just the last point, from an organization perspective, I think we're slowly getting there. I don't think we're very organized at this point in time, but I think there are a lot of initiatives happening that are, progressively getting to a point where we're, from a median level, maybe a bit more organized. There are, organizational structures from a community perspective, working on procurement frameworks, where L2B governance calls, keeping everyone updated. So I do think we have a lot more to do in relation to the organizational parameters to implement that will streamline operations a bit further. But I think from a decentralization and autonomy perspective, we're at a very good place,
Cool, thank you.
If I can chip into it, I think that it's very interesting what you mentioned, that yes, like we have a lot of things that we are already doing. And in my opinion, like even for the decentralization sake, we need to, learn our lesson from what we have already in the traditional world, because sometimes we try to not follow traditional world too much, while it makes sense to actually take some structures, some processes to the decentralized world. And something that I absolutely appreciate what you're doing is actually applying things that we know from the regular world and trying to apply them in this decentralized fashion, which is something that will push us further, in my opinion, in the coming year.
Yeah, very well
Fantastic.
said.
Yeah, those are very great insights. And yeah, hope you all listening to this Arbit notes, because if you have an idea or how to improve all the things that they shared, or you want to be part of this, just join the Arbitrum DAO. And well, I think everyone here in the panel is either a delegate or directly connected to a delegate who has voting power in the DAO to vote on proposals. So as we already shared about the steps to follow for someone that is new, I would like to ask you, like, what does it means to be a delegate, and also how can someone become a delegate? Maybe we can start with you, Friesen. What are your
Of course.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what it means to be a delegate can be different depending on the delegate. Maybe one baseline point that I think, like in my opinion, should be part of every delegate platform is a commitment to meaningfully review and vote on every proposal in the DAO that comes through. Maybe there are some qualifications to that, but I don't want to dig too deep. I'll just say like every proposal. I think this is actually a very important responsibility because there's two sides to this. One side is obviously, people are trusting you with their voting power. And so, if they're an exciting proposal that can help the DAO be successful, then that you agree with, then there's a responsibility to vote for it. But maybe even more importantly is the other side of this, which is, because the DAO has so much power, there's so much on-chain power, this is an attack vector. And there's lots of pieces built into the DAO governance mechanism design to mitigate the risk of attacks, but the risk is still there. And so, if as a delegate, if there's something that you strongly disagree with, or it could even potentially be dangerous for the DAO, like this could come through a proposal, right? And so this is where, like, if you have that voting power delegated to you, like there's a responsibility to participate. So that's like one piece. I think outside of like, just a commitment to review and thoughtfully, vote on every proposal, I would say like it's different depending on the delegate. For me personally, I help a lot with the governance process, really in general. In particular, I help people with the on-chain governance process because I have a lot of knowledge about this from working at Tally. If you have any feedback about Tally, let me know. I also try to just improve the product for the Arbitrum DAO, and then I contribute in a few other ways, but that's probably like my main focus outside of just a commitment to review every proposal. So I think this probably looks different depending on the delegate. So those are some thoughts that I have.
Thank you, Friesen. And what do you think about this, Katin?
Yeah, I think as Friesen said, like it varies a lot by the type of delegate you are. Like in my case, I basically represent our community, which is basically like trying to bridge the information gap that there might be about Arbitrum with some Spanish speakers, and also have help represent their voice on DAO, but also simply contribute to the further development of like the DAO's governance and Arbitrum's goals. But yeah, I think it's very important to figure out like what type of delegate you want to be, because as it was pointed out before, there's also like opportunities if you want to join like the governance teams of like different protocols on Arbitrum, or as well, you can just always make like your own delegation platform and just simply join the DAO. Since the DAO follows like a liquid democracy, I think it's called, model, it's pretty simple. Like it's pretty simple to just like become a delegate. You just need like votes delegated to yourself, and you can just like start engaging in the DAO's governance. So I would say like it really just depends on what you want to focus on, but the barriers of entry are not huge. If all you want to do is just like at first like just get like into it.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, I'd say that maybe as that you mentioned, like to summarize it, is like analyze yourself to see what are your interests, or what kind of delegate you want to be, as you mentioned, and to besides all the steps that we mentioned before, like getting involved with Arbitrum, getting involved with the constitution, and then start your forum account, you will have to create your delegate account on Tally. And I'd say as well, like, start contributing and sharing your thoughts in the forum, and as well in the calls. So yeah, cool to hear that. And I would like to ask you, like, what
Excuse
do you
me.
think are the? Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I just chip into that, like, very quickly, because like I think that the most important thing is you don't need to be a delegate. Like, delegate is a very special role, in my opinion, and I like quite elaborated on this on the recent Katin's proposal. In my opinion, delegates are quite kind of an executives that are final decision makers. They have this responsibility, but actually, in order to play a role in the DAO, you absolutely don't need to be a delegate. Being a delegate basically means that you are a representative. So in order to be a representative, you need to have the group that you're representing. And that's a bit different than actually being involved in the DAO. So I would say that you absolutely don't need to be a delegate, and you should consider whether you actually want to be a delegate, because this is like a huge responsibility and huge commitment. So there are way better ways in order to be influential. If you look into any proposals that recently passed, none of them were probably I believe that none of them were solely from the most from the biggest delegates. I would say that the most influential people in the DAO right now are not the biggest delegates. So basically, my message is you don't need to be a delegate in order to be, to play an important role in the DAO.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Christoph. And well, I would like to ask you, we're about to almost finish this conversation, but I would like to ask you, like, what are the important topics that are being discussed right now in the Arbitrum DAO, and how someone new can get involved? What do you think are the hot topics? Maybe who wants to answer this one? Maybe Friesen? Yeah.
I'll start quickly. Yeah, I think I won't cover every topic. I'll leave some to other people because there's many topics being discussed in the DAO right now. I think thinking like the first round of incentives STIP program is kind of maybe halfway through now, or almost 2/3 of the way through. And so there's a lot of thinking around like, okay, what does incentive looks like? I would probably pull that back like another step and say, what is the right way to use the DAO's resources to incentivize growth of the Arbitrum ecosystem in a sustainable way? I think this is a very big question that many people are doing good work on in the DAO right now.
Nice, thank you, Friesen. And Chris, what do you think about it?
I think that some of the most important topics from my perspective is that there are a lot of programs that are right now wrapping up. So anybody that can actually look into them and summarize somehow how did they go, like what did they do correctly, what did they did wrong. This is something that is much needed. For me, one of the most important topics being discussed right now is Katin's proposal for the delegate incentives. And the reason why is something that I elaborated on today on the forum. So I invite you to go there to see, because there is, like, if it goes the way I see it, there is a lot of opportunity unfolding if this proposal passes. And of course, one of the most discussed topics recently is those incentive frameworks. We had STIP as a short-term incentive program, and we know that we will have to continue that in the future. We've got this Grants DAO proposal coming from the foundation, which also, in my opinion, is very interesting in terms of it provides a lot of possibilities for anybody joining the DAO to try to find their place around those topics. So there are a lot of topics to be involved in, and I once again would like to recommend next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. UTC, the monthly governance call will cover all the hottest topics right now on the plate.
Yeah, I think I agree with the fact that I think one of the most important topics at the moment, if not the most important one, and I'll keep it short because I know I think just in time, is the delegate incentivization framework. I think what's also more important than that is that we should not fear experimenting with these frameworks. I think we get fixated too much on getting things perfect, but no one framework will actually cater for all potential possibilities. I've tried to cater for all potential possibilities in my previous proposals, current proposals. You can't, there is no perfect way to cater for it all. So the best way is just experiment, optimize on the experiment, get another framework, optimize on that framework. And, by the end of the year, next year, whatever it may be, in a few months' time, you'll have a much more optimized framework than you would have at the standstill if you would have done nothing. So if you do nothing, you won't get the quantitative and qualitative data that you need to actually improve upon proposals. So I think my last message is do not fear experimenting, test it out, optimize on that test, and yeah, we'll get a much better product in the longer term.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, continue.
Or no, yeah, I just agree basically with everything that's been said. I think we're still like in an area of experimentation. So I also pointed out like in the incentives framework proposal, and yeah, I think like the creation of like frameworks should be like something that we should keep on experimenting with. And obviously, it's not going to be perfect at first, but we have to do it at some point. We can't procrastinate it and just like look perfection since day one. So I'm very excited on how that's going. And yeah, there's well, I'm not going to repeat what others have said. There's a lot of different things people can simply hop on into, it be like DeFi, for example, the STIP, or grants with Priority Labs, or just like frameworks in general that help give the DAO a bit more order.